Hi guys, it's Debbie, and today I would like to speak about Jumanji: The Next Level, which is the second or third film in the Jumanji film series, depending on whether you consider it as a part of the whole film saga, including the original 90s film and then Zathura, or whether you consider it just as a part of this new group of films. To better clarify, basically the original Jumanji concept was presented in a 1981 book by Chris Val Alsberg, which was then adapted into a 1995 film also starring Robin Williams. The original Jumanji plot covered the story of a board game, Jumanji, that when played came to life. So whatever happened in the game happened in real life. Monkeys were released, there were floodings, crocodiles, you name it. Mostly events tied to a wild jungle environment, the setting of the game. Then at the beginning of the 2000s, another film was released, again based on a book by the author of Jumanji, and that was Zathura. In Zathura again, some kids played a board game, this time set in space. So their whole house ended up in space, with all of that entailed. Now, since 2017, there has been a Jumanji reboot series, and I remember that when this was first announced, most of us who had lived the Jumanji experience as kids were rather put off by the idea of a remake. We loyally stuck to that concept that whatever was made during our childhood just simply couldn't be remade or even continued. But when the first new film, Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle, was released, we all realised it was a completely different concept. The first time I watched it, my expectations were summed up in a sure, okay, let's watch this whatever. But I was so surprised, so positively surprised. You wouldn't even have to know of the existence of any previous Jumanji related work in order to enjoy or even understand these new films, and in any case, they are incredibly fun. In the new Jumanji films, the board game is replaced by a video game in order to keep up with times, in which the characters are sucked, taking the role of various video game avatars. The most hilarious part about all of this is that the in-game avatars have completely opposite features to their real-life players. So the quiet and anxious character becomes Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the popular snobbish girl becomes Jack Black, the sporty guy is Kevin Hart, and the shy and bookish girl becomes Karen Gillan, complete with crop tops and looks that kill. And this wouldn't never have worked with just any random muscular guy, any hot actress. This works very well with recognizable faces that in comedic films have become very self-ironic. Jack Black, The Rock. So the first film had me cracking up with laughter because in addition to all the adventurous events that the characters had to go through, the actors that portray them have to act in a completely different way, as if they were completely different people. So it's an actor portraying a person who is another person still. I mean, The Rock, who we're used to seeing as this macho action film dude, suddenly has panic attacks and gets annoyed by mosquitoes biting him. Jack Black, who we know in very different roles, suddenly acts as if he were a teenage girl without her phone to Instagram everything. Karen Gillan is annoyed that her character would be wearing revealing clothes in the middle of the jungle. And then in the middle of the jungle, there is Nick Jonas of the Jonas Brothers. It was comedic gold. Of course, this film was targeted at a very wide range of audiences, so that means from adults all the way down to children, so many scenes were played out in a manner that could be understood by them too. There are no Inception-style plot twists, but it is very fun, enjoyable. It is that perfect, laugh out loud, I want to see something fun tonight style of film. This year instead saw the release of the new sequel, Jumanji: The Next Level. In this new chapter, there are all the old characters who have learned to be braver, more accepting of others, and so on. But one of them, Spencer, ends up back inside the game, and all the others have to go back to save him. Now the problem is that something goes wrong during that process, and when the friends enter the game, they also drag in Spencer's grandfather, who is portrayed by Danny DeVito, and his old friend Milo, who is portrayed by Danny Glover. Not only that happens, but then all the avatars get switched up. So these two older guys, Danny DeVito and Danny Glover, are then portrayed by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Kevin Hart. So imagine The Rock acting like Danny DeVito, and Kevin Hart, who is always hyperactive, hyper-talkative, suddenly talking real slow, real calm, like Danny Glover. Then there are new actors added, like Awkwafina, who I'd already seen in various movies such as Ocean's 8, but who I loved in Crazy Rich Asians, in which she had a character with a personality that really stands out, and who I think was a perfect addition to the Jumanji cast. I also loved how Karen Gillan's role got more screen time, more lines, as her character evolved from the shy personality that defined her figure in the first film to this brave character in the second chapter. Basically, when they first re-enter the game in Jumanji: The Next Level, she is the lead of the characters. I don't want to talk too much about plot details because there are many big elements that aren't shown or even hinted at in the trailers, so the viewing experience could be ruined. One thing I can tell you is that there are huge action sequences, as you would expect, and I was thinking of this. I don't usually enjoy 3D films, but maybe this film is one I could possibly enjoy in 3D cinema because of how it is laid out. There are also a lot of changes in scenery, something which expands the gaming area compared to the first film. But in general, I can say that I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I laughed out loud, I loved how it poked at differences, but in a fun way that makes us appreciate how people just are different. As a matter of fact, one of the best features of Jumanji: The Next Level is that the plot is mostly character-based. We would be entertained in any gaming environment because we mostly became affectionate to the characters and their relationships. This is no Oscar film. This is never going to be remembered as one of the best films of all time. It isn't even close to being one of the best films of this year. Don't expect an incredibly detailed plot with the smallest details popping up everywhere. You don't have to see it as something like that. There's often a feeling, especially among cinema lovers, that a movie should only be made, you shouldn't even call it movie first of all, but it should only be made with the objective of creating a form of art. That is mostly true. As a matter of fact, most of the most appreciated films have been created with the objective of making something beautiful, something touching, long-lasting, special, funny, entertaining, sad, meaningful. But there is the other side of cinema, which is pure entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with films made solely for that. A couple of years ago, The Rock was in Baywatch with Zac Efron, and it was probably the most over-the-top and ridiculously funny film of the summer. But that is what it was meant to be. The Jumanji characters don't need a development like the ones of The Irishman or Fight Club. They are not Darth Vader or the Joker or Marty McFly. They are not in that kind of film, even because if you think of it, these are video game avatars stuck within one path they have to take, one course of action they can't really change. The problem occurs when films on the contrary try to present themselves as something epic, which they just aren't. Jumanji: The Next Level is a let's just watch something fun tonight. It's something everybody can enjoy. Is it fun? Is it quick? Is it a great film for Christmas? Absolutely. I also really appreciate how neither of these two new Jumanji chapters are trying to be a blatant remake of the original content. The first Jumanji was one thing, these are another. They homage it in many ways, but they are entertaining in their own way. Your kids can enjoy this, your grandparents can enjoy this. I felt it got a little ruder compared to the previous film, possibly because the creators noticed the popularity the first chapter had with older audiences and thought they could expand a little on that, which is fine. These films kind of remind me of works like A Series of Unfortunate Events, the film or the series, because everything is kind of young, teen-oriented, the adventures, the coming up with ideas, the friendship, but it is also absolutely packed with references that would only work with adults, making it something everybody can enjoy. I think the fact of reaching out to more age groups is just one of the features that makes films such as WALL-E, The Incredibles, the Avengers films, the Lego Movie so popular. You wouldn't exactly expect a preschooler who's watching Zootopia to get that hilarious Godfather wedding reference, or a kid enjoying the Iron Giant to know what the Cold War was, but they are still fun for everybody. The director of these new Jumanji films is Jake Kasdan, who I had to Google. Sorry, Jake. But I realised he directed Bad Teacher, which is another film that is so funny. It stars Cameron Diaz as the title character of this bad teacher, this lazy teacher who's trying to save up money to get herself a boob job, and she teaches alongside Jason Segel, Justin Timberlake, Lucy Punch, who I also find hilarious. So I'm really looking forward to see more of his works. I know he's already slated to direct Bad Teacher 2, but I want to see more of his works in general. Jumanji: The Next Level has one downside, and that is that it heavily relies on the previous chapter. Because all the characters are always stuck in that world in which they can't really change that much, they can't really do anything beyond the path they are set to do. Most of the film has to resort on the comedy between the characters and then huge action sequences. There's nothing really in between. It never reaches that point of a "where are they now" film, but in some moments it felt really similar to the first chapter. That is why I think any future sequels, which haven't actually even been spoken about, would be pushing the material a little too much. I think these two films were perfectly enough, and I know I'm going to sound ancient when I say this, but I think they fit perfectly in this Fortnite-influenced world of really fun and bright video gaming. Actually, the same night that I watched Jumanji: The Next Level, the trailer to Free Guy was released, and it's also set within a video game environment, again with references to Fortnite as well as other games. And basically Ryan Reynolds is a non-player character who lives in the middle of fights, explosions, heists, car rampages, until one day he decides to take part in all of that. But anyway, go watch Jumanji: The Next Level, you'll have a great laugh. If you're feeling a little nostalgic, pull out that old Jumanji film from the 90s, you'll have a great time. But I'm most excited now to know what you think about all of this, so make sure to leave a comment down below with your opinion. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you soon in the next one. Bye.